Abundance is all around me. It's in the flowers, it's in the trees, it's in the honey, it's at your feet. It's in the stars that you see. It's our birthright, it's our birthright. So look around and see it everywhere. It's in your shoes, your hats, the clothes you get to wear. All I know, abundance is everywhere. Abundance is all around me. Abundance is all around me. It's in the earth you walk upon, a gentle breeze. It's in the water that bathes you, bathes you, bathes you with your friends. It's having a laugh. It's breathing fresh air and watering the plants. Listen around and hear it everywhere. It's with the bats, the bees, the birds that fly with flair. All I know, abundance is everywhere. Abundance is all around me. Abundance is all around me. It's in the green, green grass, the big blue ocean. It's with the whales and dolphins that play in splendid motion. It's in the carpet even, it's in the rug even. It's in the bed you sleep in, the sheets you drench with sweat even. So look around and feel it everywhere. It's with the people and the love you get to share. Breathe it in, breathe it out, breathe it in, breathe it out, breathe it in.
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see your faces this morning. I know usually if you've joined us before, we try to give you a pump up song for the morning. It's so nice to ease into the morning with that slower song and that very centering pace as we talk about what it means to think about the adequate and the abundant this morning. So Hamida, are you feeling abundant this morning?
I have coffee. I'm feeling abundant. Yes.
All right. I'm like, there's a whole lot of world out there, and I am ready to be abundant with it. So, and we're delighted to have all of you folks in this space as we think through what it means to talk about adequacy and abundance, how that manifests in the nonprofit sector, how we can shift those sometimes destructive mindsets that we have in the nonprofit sector. We encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat if you would like. My name is Hillary Watson. I am a consultant at New. Hamida is co-hosting with me this morning. We are delighted that we get to host this space and can just share a little bit of an introduction if you are new to New. We are a nonprofit capacity builder that works across Southeast Michigan, and really our goal is to add depth and capacity to those mission-driven organizations that are out here working so hard, making the world better. This morning is really a space around connectivity. I was in a conversation with a nonprofit executive director yesterday who was talking about just how lonely it is to be the executive director, to be the decision maker in a small nonprofit. And that was really what motivated us to build this space, to break down that loneliness of the leader, to build connections, and to give you space to think about those challenges and tough spaces that exist in your organization, and to be able to kind of in this space really shake up what the perception is, how you're thinking about those sticky problems, and kind of unstick some of those patterns of thought and challenges that exist. And to really give you concrete ideas for things that you can introduce, different ways that you can approach your organization and how you are functioning. This is a space where we try to make real, genuine connections. So in that spirit, our commitment is that we will start and we will end on time. We will probably even cut off our conversation at 8:55 so we can do a little bit of wrap up. We always like to get your feedback at the end too. So we will be out of here by 9 o'clock. We recognize that there is a lot going on in many of our virtual lives in this space. You can hear some dog in the background over here. So we recognize that's part of life happening, and please take the space for self-care in the next hour that you need to. Turn off your video when you need to. We encourage you to keep it on when you're able, because this is a real conversational space too. And so we invite you to be kind and to be brave in that conversation, and to use the tools that we have in Zoom. We have these beautiful abilities to react in the moment. I think Zoom just updated, so we now can react with any emoji. So if you want to play around with that, give feedback to our speakers as they're presenting in the same way that you would if they were here in conversation live in your bedroom, in your office. And please do use the chat box as well. So I'm going to pass it to Hamida to get our icebreaker going.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to leave this up for a little bit just so folks can visually see the icebreaker conversation. So knowing that we're at a place where we're moving beyond adequate to abundance, we thought it'd be really helpful for us to start with just practicing abundance and practicing dreaming. So Hill, thank you so much for working on breakout rooms. We're going to ask you in groups of 3 to think about if your organization could have unlimited amounts of 2 to 3 things, excluding money. So money usually is a vehicle to get whatever we actually are hoping for, right? That might be extra resources, that might be extra folks on our team, that might be a margarita machine. I mean, whatever you feel would really move your organization forward. So I'm going to stop sharing now. But we are really asking you to spend about maybe 6 minutes in your small group, really thinking about what would be really transformative in terms of 2 to 3 resources that would help you achieve your mission for your nonprofit.
Hamida, it is early, so just to get folks kind of seated, I am curious, what is your answer to that question?
Yeah, my answer to that question, I think about, I'm going to hold Champions for Change as sort of my example. It's one of our programs that are really around racial collaboration and leadership development. And I think about, we have some great facilitators. And if we could expand that pool in terms of having a larger team, just to be able to play off of each other in a lot of ways, I think that would be incredible. Also thinking about that, I think about being able to, so we have a retreat that, barring COVID, if COVID wasn't a thing, we would have done a retreat at the very beginning of September. And I think about what it means to just have that retreat. So be able to have that place at Idlewild and connect with folks and really build those relationships. So for me, it's relationships and humans. And you know, I think a really great dialogue space for us if we were in person, if I can dream about in person. Something that had like soft seating. We could sit in a circle and see all of each other, and really, again, be able to build those relationships. So an experience, more people, and a space that really feels warm. Thanks for that, Hill.
Yeah, thank you. I am ready with the breakout groups when you are.
Well, do folks have questions? What questions do folks have before we head out to breakouts? Going once, I saw a head nod. All right, I hit it, Hill. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had some very fruitful conversations, and came up with some great resources.
Bruce, that's what we like to hear. You ran out of time.
Yes, yes. So speaking of time, to keep us moving along.
We've still got folks coming back. Give it
Okay. Thank you for that.
10 seconds. Yeah. Folks are wandering back. All right, I think everyone is back with us now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hill. So we hope that you had some very abundant conversations and came up with some resources that seem sort of a little, kind of far in the sky, and resources that might be closer than you might think. So in the spirit of introducing our speakers who will help us think about both, Angela Barbash is joining us. She is a mom, an anthropologist, entrepreneur, and an unabashed challenger of the status quo. She's dedicated 17 years in service as a values-driven financial advisor in the Metro Detroit region, and was one of the first to obtain the Chartered Sustainable Responsible Impact Investing Counselor, CS-RIC, designation in the US. Angela has volunteered in nonprofit board service throughout much of her professional career and delights in collaborative, inspired teamwork. In her role as CEO of Revalue, you will often find her educating on the topic of accessible financial resiliency, community capital, and conscious business management. We're also joined by Melvin Parson. So Melvin Parson is an executive director. Melvin, A.K. Farmer Parson, has spent approximately 13 years of his life incarcerated, was homeless on 3 separate occasions, and battled with substance abuse for many years. As such, he has experienced many of the challenges that come along with either being on parole or probation. While he was earning a BSW from Eastern Michigan University in 2015, he co-founded a mentor program for men and women returning home from incarceration called A Brighter Way. That same year, Melvin founded We the People Growers Association, and in 2018 founded a nonprofit organization, We the People Farm. We the People Opportunity Farm. Its vision centers around providing soil changing opportunities for both men and women returning home from incarceration. Melvin believes a main factor for people returning back to prison is a result of not being able to find meaningful employment and enrichment opportunities. One of Melvin's goals is to provide a paid internship program for formerly incarcerated men and women, which will act as a springboard for future employment, continued education, and meaningful strides towards caring about themselves, others, and their community. So I will pass it over to Hill to bring our speakers on board, stop my screen share so we can see your lovely faces and have our conversation.
Thanks, Amita. And Angela and Melvin, it is wonderful to have you here this morning. I think there's a lot of folks in our audience too who are really excited to see you. So thank you both for being here. And just to start us off, both of you have really interesting stories about how you came to mindsets of abundance, and that didn't come intuitively to you as it doesn't for many of us in the culture that we're raised in. So I would just love for each of you to share your stories about how you were able to transform and how you connected with a mindset of abundance.
Melvin, would you like to go first? You're on mute. There you
Uh, hi everyone. No, by all means, Angela, after you, please.
Okay, that sounds good. So good morning, everyone. For those of you that I have the privilege of knowing, it's good to see you. And those of you that I've not yet met, it's nice to meet you. I did not grow up with a sense of abundance that wasn't even in our vernacular growing up. It was very hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, and abundance, if we had talked about it, would have only been expressed in money, in the money context. And what I'm excited about in this conversation is to broaden that perspective beyond money. But growing up, that was really where we thought about resources, was in what money is in, what money is out, what don't we have, what do we wish we had. And so coming into my early 20s, not really understanding how money actually worked on a personal finance front or a global economics front or a community resiliency front. I didn't understand really any of that, but really wanted to understand it because I had it really impressed upon me early on that in my journey as an anthropologist, that if I didn't understand how those worlds worked and those systems worked, then it was going to be very challenging to try to have a positive impact on the world. And that was very confusing to me at 21. That the idea that I needed to understand how those systems work, yet simultaneously understand that the way to have a positive impact was not through those systems. And it's taken me 17 years to figure out what that actually means, or maybe 20 years to figure out what that actually means. I feel like I've got a decent understanding of it now, and maybe we'll talk a bit about that. But in the early days, yeah, I didn't understand what abundance or scarcity meant. And over the first decade of my career, I started to understand a little bit more about what it meant to have an abundant mindset or a scarcity-based mindset. And then in the last decade, I have completely broken all of that open to move outside of the money context and to ground in abundance I think in a realer way, a more relevant way. And I can credit a person who's in the room right now for having really pushed me to take the first major step in that, which was recognizing that it all really started with my key relationship, my primary spousal relationship, partner relationship at home, that was where I had to start. And then to even take a step even further back from that, it had to start with myself. I had to ground in an abundance mindset within myself, that everything emanated from my sense of self-worth and self-love and self-care. And that came after 30 years of not having built up my own self-worth or having others around me help me build my self-worth. And so I really had to go completely back to basics and back to scratch. And I essentially tear my entire ecosystem down in order to get to the fundamentals of myself and then rebuild from there. And that's taken the last decade to do. So that's the quickest way I could summarize how I started and where I went, and then we'll talk more about what that means for me today. So I'll pass the mic over to Melvin now.
Hey, thanks, Angela, for sharing that. And thank you, Hillary and Hamida, for hosting this space that we can have this, I guess, an important conversation and open dialogue regarding scarcity and abundance. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Yeah, again, I'm Melvin Parson, and I, like Angela, I didn't come into this space with an abundance mindset. I also I grew up having a very a scarcity mindset. I spent a lot of years of my life before being catapulted into this arena that I'm now in, living well below the poverty line. I had a bridge card. I lived in affordable housing. It was just, yeah, it was really day to day, that sort of thing there. And which means that I lived in a lot of fear, having a mindset of scarcity, like scarcity and fear kind of seem to coincide with one another. And so it's taken a lot of folks and a lot of affirmations, both personally and professionally in my life, to kind of move that needle from a scarcity mindset to one of an abundant mindset. I think for me, professionally, it's easier to have that abundant mindset, and I'm working towards creating that with the help of people in my village, right, to move me personally from living in fear or feeling like I don't have enough of, or I should be more, from getting away from that to having the perspective that I am enough and I do have what I need and I'm valuable and relevant and all those things there. So with that, I'll pass it back to our host and see where we go from here.
Yeah, well, I think those are beautiful stories, and I'm curious, as you it sounds so beautiful as you share it, but when you're actually in the middle of that process, what does that look like, and how do you shift all of those internal narratives? And for you, what are the real characteristics that mark abundance or mark abundant thinking?
I'll go, Angela. For me, one of the things I just talked about, one of the characteristics is not, for having an abundant mindset, is not operating in a fear-based sort of way, like operating where my decisions are not based in fear. But again, in order for me to do that, it takes me being connected to people other than myself, right? To kind of like nudge me on and give me that encouragement or that attaboy or something to help me push beyond what I feel my capabilities or my limitations are.
So if it's not fear driving your decisions, what is it instead?
So if it's not when it's not fear driving my decisions, for me, it's a lot of faith that things will work out. It's a lot of one of our goals in life. I mean, one of our goals for my organization is to act. Our values is courageous disruption. So when it's not fear driving my decisions, there's faith and there's courage.
I love that, Melvin. Courageous disruption. I feel like that really summarizes all of it, right? The work that we're doing. I think it does take a lot of vulnerability and willingness to just fail and be wrong and have tunnel vision and have that pointed out by other people, and that willingness to just accept all of that without internalizing it and attaching our sense of worth, or I guess I can speak just from my perspective, not attaching my sense of self-worth to those times when I shot, for something, went for something and didn't reach it, didn't get it. I think that that's a big piece of it, is just embracing that that failure, it's not really a failure. It's just another experience that makes me better at what I'm trying to do. I think getting outside of myself, as Melvin said, and having other people to talk to is really key, because at least for, Melvin and I, we've shared with each other that we both felt called to do the work that we do, that there was a kind of a moment in time where everything around us sort of stopped, and we felt divinely called. And in that kind of situation, it's, at least for me, it was very easy to fall into tunnel vision and to start to block out everything else in the world except for the pursuit of the mission. And so getting outside of myself to talk to other people and to bounce off of them what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, so that they can help me see where I am falling into fear-based decision-making versus an abundance mindset. And I think the other thing for me, you had asked if you're not coming from an abundance mindset, then what kind of mindset might you be? What's motivating you, right? Or if it's not fear-based, then what is motivating you? How would I describe that? For me, I have the privilege of getting to see transformation and healing on a day-to-day basis with the people that we work with. And every single day, when there's a little light bulb that goes off in someone's mind, an aha moment, they get a concept they didn't understand before, they've achieved a goal that they've been working toward for a long time. They completely change their trajectory because of the information or insight or guidance that we've been able to give them. All of that to me is what fuels me on a day-to-day. I mean, just the privilege to get to show up and bear witness to that is phenomenal to me. I mean, it's like the miracle of life. So that for me is a very easy motivator for me to show up every day and watch that happen. And it does remind me of how incredible humanity is, and humanity's capacity for change and evolution plays out in front of me every single day. So that's what is driving me to stay focused on an abundance kind of gratitude space versus a fear-based mindset with even deeper tunnel vision that's not healthy.
Thank you so much, Angela. I mean, so much there to process through. What was coming up when I was listening to both you and Melvin, though, is this connection to faith, connection to community. And, I'm really curious, we talked about sort of like the crossroads when things got really tough. What do you lean on? But, really curious, you've talked about the role of like self-awareness and self-esteem and love. And some of spirituality. I want to give you a space to elaborate on that a little bit more if you desire. And, really think about how does one actually foster that self-love and that faith or belief in the universe, and trusting that you're loved. And I can paste that in the chat because that's like 12 questions altogether. But I think really that how sometimes, and just knowing one's own method is helpful to really doing this work.
I'll go. Yeah, thanks, Hamida, for those 12 questions. I mean, for me, it's relational. And also for me, it's kind of like trial and error in trying to do things on my own, by myself, without community. And so I started out from a space, not a good launching pad. I was raised by my grandparents, very, very beautiful launching pad there. And I shied away from that. And again, a series of mistakes and bad choices, bad decisions. and which kind of found me isolated and left alone. And so I didn't have a lot of success stories to begin with. And so I didn't really, and neither did I know how to really take good care of myself internally or love myself in that sort of way. And in getting cast into this trajectory that I'm in now, for example, I brought me along with me, and I brought that kind of, not so much the need to do it alone, but not knowing how to include other folks. Because I've spent so many years isolated and not being able to reach out and engage others in a meaningful sort of way. And so it took I tell you, one of the life-changing events for me to kind of go from that to moving towards a space of self-love and care for others was a tragic car accident that I was involved in back in May 19th of 2019. And the accident was my fault, and my pickup truck rolled over on the freeway, and I broke my neck in 3 places. And it was and I gotta say this, it sounds weird, but it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I mean, I've got no neck pain or nerve damage, but what it was a real wake-up call for me in terms of like looking at my life and looking at my space in the world and how I showed up in the world. But more importantly, how much help I needed. So like, as a result of that, I've got a therapist that I see bi-weekly. I'm more connected to folks. I try to work towards that in a more meaningful way than I ever have. And so for me, it seems like it's those almost like life-altering events that get me from, these growth spots that happens for me. And especially as you talked about earlier, mentioned earlier in Angela spoke to, it's challenging being the leader of an organization and having to make all of these decisions. And it's easy to get isolated in that process. And so I find myself having to be very intentional about reaching out and including others and being focused, but that tunnel vision that Angela mentioned, like being mindful of that and not to get kind of trapped into that.
Melvin, I remember I saw you shortly after that accident. We ran into each other, I think, at Cultivate, and you were a changed man. You were so aware of it, which was amazing. It was like it hit you just like that. That you were going so fast, and then when that happened, everything, time just slowed down for you, and you could see things so clearly. It was beautiful, and in a weird neck brace kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I was thinking about, what do I lean back on, right? What do I rely on when I start to lose faith or start to lose sight of that abundance mindset? And I was thinking that, really, I'm an economic anthropologist, which means that my first love was math. And I think the reason why my first love was math is because 1 + 1 = 2, and I could rely on that. And I grew up in a space of neglect and social outcasting. And so I was very isolated. I was very, I just got left to my own Lord of the Flies kind of world. I had to just figure it out. And math was something I could truly rely on. It was formulaic, and it was patterned, and it was easy to figure out and to know that those formulas were gonna hash out the way that they should. And then my second love was people. As I became an adult and I fell in love with cultures around the world and the ways that so many ways that people can move through the world and be accepted, and how there was no one way to live life as I had been conditioned to believe growing up. And so I put those two things together, and that's what economic anthropology is. And in that journey, there was a formula that was shared with me very early on in Revalues history. It was like in the first year, one of our co-founders shared this formula with us, and it was, I'm going to put it in the chat. It was W equals I plus R plus E. And he said, this is shout out to Pavan Muzumdar. He said, wealth is the combination of human intellect, natural resources, and energy. And in this context, wealth is not money. Money is not wealth at all. Money is a proxy for real wealth. Wealth is built capital, natural capital, social capital, time. It's all of these things, good health. It's all these things that's not money. But we've been conditioned to believe that money equals wealth, wealth equals money. And so in this definition of wealth, being this abundant, multifaceted definition of wealth, human intellect is unlimited, because our ability to sit in a room and solve problems together and ideate together and collaborate together is absolutely unlimited. Natural resources are limited. Energy is unlimited when we're talking about the sun's energy. And so when you have a formula where two of the elements are infinite and only one is finite, the definition is infinite. And so when I get lost in the world of, feeling sorry for myself, or, oh my gosh, I pegged all my hopes and dreams on this thing and it didn't pan out, which in and of itself is its own problem, to peg all your hopes and dreams on something. I often come back to this formula and remind myself that wealth is infinitely abundant. This is the mathematical proof for me as a quantitative person. This is the mathematical proof that that wealth is, and everything that wealth really truly means, not money, it is absolutely abundant. There's no way around it. So that's one of the things that I lean on, besides all of the other community, faith, all of those things too.
Thank you both for sharing that. As a way of kind of transitioning into, we're going to start asking folks for their questions and get a little more conversational. But to lead us into that, I would love to hear from each of you. What is just one or two things, practices that you have that allow you to cultivate abundance? Or how have you incorporated that in your daily routine?
I guess I can go, Melvin. One thing in our team, we do something called a monthly team hug within our team. And that's where we take about a half a day once a month as a team. And we get together and we all share like what's going on in our lives. It's an opportunity for us to be vulnerable, to ask for support, to just practice active listening and being listening partners for each other. And through that, we always seem to come out of that half day feeling more abundant, each one of us, because we understand a little bit more about the resources available to us through our team members and what they bring to the table, and like just the capacity that they have even to listen. So I think that's an important one. And then for me, I recharge really well by spending time in the sun. And in fact, I have a UV lamp on my desk right now that I start my day with. And so I didn't really realize for the longest time the connection between a vitamin D deficiency and feeling like the world is caving in and there's nothing I can do about it. So that mental health piece for me was just something that I realized in this last year and has been pretty pivotal, whether it's the UV lamp on my desk or standing outside to stare to close my eyes and be in the face of the sun for 3 minutes. It makes a big difference for me.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. I really like how you talked about the self-care piece and how the holistic piece and how all those things kind of tie into having an abundant mindset. I personally, so I look for ways to recharge and unwind. I went to Argo Park. What was that, this weekend, and shot the rapids, and it's hot outside, that sort of thing. And I've never been before. But finding those ways to kind of like still stay connected to folks, but looking constantly for ways to take care of Melvin helps me to develop that sort of or to stay close to, or to draw closer to that sort of abundant mindset. And then another thing for me is, a lot of stuff, again, back to being grounded in fear a lot of my life. So for me, it's important to just kind of be bold and be brave and don't be scared, right? It's going to work out. Is also one of the ways in which I find myself operating in best. And then and being naive too doesn't hurt either sometimes, right? So that's what it is for myself.
I love that, owning strategic naivete. We want to give space for other folks to ask questions too. So if you have a question, you can stick it in the chat. Or I think we're a small enough group that if you just want to come off mute and share what's coming up for you, or how you've been patterning abundance, feel free to do that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brent Smith. I'm with Living Arts. This question is for Melvin. I think about often just post-traumatic slave history, as myself being a 9th generation farmer and outdoorsman. How are you connecting young people to your land and your property in a way that feels good for you?
Oh, thanks, Brent. That's a good question. So our mission is to break the cycle of incarceration here in Washtenaw County. And so we've got a formerly incarcerated, we have a paid internship program for formerly incarcerated men and women. So our focus isn't so much on young folks as it is adults. But I'm 57 years old now, so a lot of folks are like young folks to me. But it's not primarily focused on young folks. However, we do like to create a space or have a space where groups of people can come and visit. Young folks can come and visit or take a tour or learn about the origins of our We the People Opportunity Farm and why we exist. And that resonates deeply within me because I understand a little bit about the plight of the Black farmer and our legacy and our trauma tied to land. I think it's important, I think it's important, especially for young Black and brown kids, like when they come out to visit, and that I get an opportunity to say, hello, I'm Farmer Parson, and this is my space here. Because I feel it's easier to become something that you can see. Like, how do I want to say this? It's easier for a young person to look at someone that looks like them and be able to make that transition that could possibly be them than it is for someone telling them who they can be, but that person doesn't look like them. And so I feel like it's important for me to show up in that space and say, you know, reflect that image to them. And that, you know, I feel like a privilege and an honor to be able to do something like that, Brent.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your work. And Angela, thank you for your work as well.
Maybe one more question. Oh, go ahead, Rita. You came off mute.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So I thought I came on late, but I came right on time because the first thing I heard was Melvin saying courageous disruption. And then I knew I was right on time. So thank you so much for that, Melvin. I'd never heard it phrased that way before. Good to see some familiar faces. I was wondering if either of you believe there's a connection between joy and abundance, and if so, what do you think that would be? And how has that manifested in your lived experience?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And it feels more natural to me, not quite forced. Like when I find joy, I tend to wander right into abundance. When I find abundance, I happen to see joy in the room. And so I find that when I pursue either of those mindsets or environments or create those environments through either my self-talk or through the structures around me, that I tend to get to the other very quickly. And every day, I mean, our team, at least, because we get to show up and, you know, see all of this magical, you know, these miracles happen with humanity every day. It's very joyful. We show up and the work is incredibly hard, and half the time we don't know the answer to questions and we have to go research them. And, you know, things are difficult and our industry is difficult, whatever, it's all difficult. But within that, it is also incredibly joyful. And so it's just really, every few weeks, we all kind of look at each other and we're like, are we really laughing and having so much joy amongst so much strife and difficulty? That's so bizarre and amazing. And in that way, we feel blessed to be able to do this work and get up every day to do it. So I do see a connection, yes, by natural happenstance, maybe.
Melvin, you want to add anything there?
No, I mean, I second that. I mean, they're like strongly correlated with one another.
Well, we are coming up on 9 o'clock. So we are transitioning you all back into your mornings. There's a reason we do this session at 8 a.m. Hopefully you are grounded for your day, able to go into your day more joyfully and abundantly. I want to pass it over to Hamida. She's been kind of in the background making some notes and has some final thoughts for us.
Thank you so much for that, Hill. And really the notes or things I was gathering is really gems that you, Angela, and Melvin shared with us today. So just some affirmations as we leave this space. Hold on to abundance is more than money. Self-love and self-care are essential ingredients for abundance. Connect with people and find your village. Faith is the antidote to fear. Lean into courageous disruption. Grow joy within yourself to wander into abundance. Abundance includes imperfection, is relational, and full of trials and errors, and self-forgiveness. Bring you along with you and include your community. Listen to and act upon your wake-up calls. Practice strategic naivete. I need to remember that one. Therapy is part of self-love. There's no one way to live life. You determine your path. Wealth is a combination of human intellect, natural resources, and human energy. Our problem-solving capabilities, curiosity, fire, and drive are infinite. Feed yourself with relationships, love and care for yourself, and vitamin D. Abundance means your story is unfolding in the ways you manifest, and you and the universe conspire to create your plot. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone.